That was actually, you know what, because you've done so many competitions, right? This is a really good question I'd like to start with you on. Do you notice the difference between, say, like domestic IPF competitions, so like opens, nationals, things like that, and then like an AB series in terms of environment, atmosphere, things like that? Because I know when I was at Last Chance, and even the competitions I've handled at, I can't get over how like silent it is a lot of the time. Like, don't get me wrong, there's music and people are kind of like chit-chatting and one or two people might cheer for somebody they know. And you know, some big third attempt pulls or big squats, people might, you know, light up a little bit. But I always feel like at an AB series, or it seems like anyway, the audience are way more invested in what's going on the platform. Is that something you felt as somebody who's competed at both?
To be honest, I felt like Jay always put on such a show. It's like a production that's happening. So obviously there's so much visual stuff going on that I feel like it's kind of hard not to pay attention to what's happening.
Yeah.
With IPF, I've been lucky enough that all my competitions have pretty much only been nationals.
Right.
Within IPF, bar my first two comps were intervarsities and an open.
Yeah.
Then I was thrown straight in the deep end of open nationals within like a year of powerlifting. So I feel like I've always had that hype.
Right.
You know, big events, a lot of people. I'm lucky enough that like I feel like I have a good support system within powerlifting. I know people, and some of my closest friends will always be at competitions. Like Sarah Gardner, you can hear her about 14 rooms away at a comp. I'm very grateful to have that in my corner and people like that. So I feel like it might be a bit different for me.
For sure. I think that's probably, it speaks to a good standard though as well, because we were talking about before we kicked off that you have like this like laundry list of competitions you've competed at. So I suppose then the easier comparison is like if we look at, say, like you've competed at like big IPF, International Powerlifting Federation events representing Ireland versus AB Series. Those events are like dead quiet. What's that like?
Oh, I still remember my first Worlds was like 2019 in Sweden. Travelled over with Sarah Gardner and Katrina Connolly. That was probably the wildest week of my life I've ever experienced. Like first international, obviously, and that was back when I was getting coached with Stephen. So all my closest friends there. But I'm not sure like if people would imagine like the old abs.
I'm sure a good few people listening have probably been in it, yeah. The gym in Glasnevin, Ballyboggan Road, yeah.
So basically the actual ground, like it was in a big arena, and the ground itself, like the lower level, was probably the size of abs.
Right.
And then like way, 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 way back will be the crowd.
Right.
So you actually couldn't really hear anything as to what's going on, bar a tiny bit of music and then your friends shouting.
Yeah. That's one thing I noticed. So anytime Ireland, in the last couple of years that I've been involved in powerlifting, anytime Ireland go abroad, so I've seen you on the live stream. Like I've seen you coming out. Your most recent international, anyway, I know I was watching that. It's hard to remember which ones are which now, but I've always tuned into the live streams to see the buzz, and you can always hear somebody shouting at the Irish lifters. Always. So they definitely bring whatever camaraderie is being established through like training and everyone knowing each other. Because again, we are on this like little island. I'm glad to see that that's taken abroad into the international scene, because as much as we have like abs powerlifting, city gym, we've Strength Militia are probably still out there somewhere. We've Odyssey, we've Chaos. We all still collectively make up the Irish team, you know? So I do love that. And speaking of big competitions, we are literally, by the time this goes out, will have happened and everyone will know what the result is. We are one day out from Irish PF Open Nationals in the Radisson Blu Hotel. And it's your first competition as an under 52, am I right?
Yeah, officially, because I did one AB series.
Right.
But I mean, I wanted to cut into that for dots. So I worked with Katrina for that as well. And we cut down to 49s.
Right.
Like, not a hope, like going 47s. So that was a bit of a stepping stone to kind of getting back on the platform after pretty much a tough year taken back with college, work, everything. So I was like, okay, I'll get my foot back in the door, see if I actually want to pursue this. Again, like, do I want to still compete in the open? I had no idea at the time.
Yeah, because that's something we've talked a little bit about, and I know when we were discussing on messages and things like that prior to getting you here on the podcast, it was, so you started lifting quite young. You've lifted all through your junior years. So for people listening at home, junior is 23 and under. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
And then you're in the open then after that. So that's the seniors. It's people between, I believe, 24 and 38 or thereabouts, I think.
39.
39,
yeah.
great. So that's a big age cohort. So you made that transition of being, young, upcoming lifter. You build up this massive competition experience, which is something I'm a massive advocate for. I think newer lifters are better off served when they compete more regularly younger, so they get the experience, because again, you could have a great training total and it could be terrible by the time you get to the meet because you're just shitting yourself, especially if you think of some newer lifters, their first time going abroad without mommy and daddy is at an international powerlifting meet. That's obviously quite jarring for them. But as you mentioned, you've competed quite regularly at a high level all throughout your lifting career. And then you hit this point, I believe it was at Nationals last year. So you're at Nationals 2022, a year ago, almost to the day. And you hit a bit of a turning point of powerlifting, you mentioned to me in some of the messages, where you weren't sure if powerlifting was still going to be the thing you were going to do. So talk me through a little bit of that. Firstly, where the struggle stemmed from and how we came out of it. So talk me through it.
So at the time, I was basically finishing up my second semester of my master's. Now, my master's was like my passion. I was pretty much hounding the fella, like the person who was like the director of the course, because I was late in getting my submission in for the application.
What's the master's in?
Environment, Society and Development.
Oh, very good.
So like I really want to go into sustainability down the line. So this was like a really great stepping stone. Loved every minute of it. But at the time, I hated powerlifting. I was so burnt out finishing up my junior career that I was like, I actually don't see a point in me competing anymore. With that being said, I was like, okay, I just need the time off.
Yeah.
So basically pulled myself back, threw myself into my master's, spoke to Jay and was like, I actually just don't want to powerlift anymore. Put me on a 2-day week plan. So I went from training 4 days a week with such high intensity to 2 days, maybe 1 a week.
Right. Wow.
With powerlifting.
Yeah.
And I kind of went in, did my own thing. Now, I was lucky enough that I had Josh Foyle. So
Abs go away.
Yeah. Going strong. But he was kind of in the same position. He went into a rut as well himself with powerlifting and took a step back. Then he came back for nationals.
Yep.
So I kind of spoke to him about it and he was like, look, do whatever you want. He's like, powerlifting will always be there at the end of the day, but your career, mental health in college won't.
Yeah. So can I actually ask a question? Now, as we mentioned already, and anyone can go on openpowerlifting.org and look up Kym's extensive history in powerlifting. It's quite an impressive resume of experience, particularly for how many of them are abroad. You managed to balance this while also going through the process of getting your master's. So I can absolutely understand why you might hit that point of burnout.
Yeah.
I really want to know, because I know people are going to be listening, they're going to want to know, how did you balance those things?
To be honest, I probably didn't do very well.
Right.
So...
And a good social life as well, I'll throw in there.
I do love pints. So that definitely was not compromised.
Right, good.
Yeah.
Number one.
So basically I did Worlds 2019. I did that during my undergrad as well.
Wow.
And then obviously we went into COVID and there was that whole weird time period. So by the time I got to my master's, I was like, I had a decent schedule already in place because I was like, 4 days, give or take, in the college, and then I would work weekends. So for a lot of people, if they don't know me, like I'm a bartender. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday would be our prime time for working there. So I specifically worked those days. Now, it's not a lot, worked part-time, you know yourself, just get me through it. But then on top of that, I was training 4 times a week. And then, don't really know how I did it, managed to still go out 2-3 days a week.
Well, obviously, I mean, priorities.
But it came down to like, I lived by a little diary.
Yeah.
That's what I always say. Like, I'm very good with structure.
Yes.
If I have a routine and that I know I can stick to it, that is the easiest way for me to get things done. Like,
right.
I have a little whiteboard in my room. So it just has everything, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it just have the dates, whatever. It'll just have like, it'll be all sectioned off and then a to-do list.
Yeah.
Just write everything I need to do. Like, whether that be assignments, going out, whatever. Have that all down and then I just schedule it across the days coming.
But you know what I think is very valuable there? As much as like this is a story about how you managed to burn yourself out in powerlifting, just with how heavily involved you are and how invested you are in it, it does go to show, because I think what many people tend to suffer with now, and I'm sure you can probably think of someone or a group of people that you might know when I say this. There's people that will complain about not having the time for things, or not being able to fit something in, whether that's something like the gym, even social life, further education, whatever their side hustle might be, whatever it is. But you stand to that. You managed to do a master's, have a healthy social life, and compete to a very high level internationally in this quite niche sport, which demands quite a bit of your time. Like powerlifting training sessions are not short.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're able to do all that, and as you mentioned, you had like a diary, you have your whiteboard, so you're basically like scheduling almost every hour of your day, which is, you can really, really push a lot of productivity out of that, which something I resonate with because I do that too. But it just goes to show that somebody like yourself, like when you're still quite young, like, you know, so socializing is massively important. I'm a fucking old fucker now, like, so I need to be in bed by 9 o'clock. But it's great that you have seen the forest for the trees. You realize that as much as your social life's important, prioritizing being fit, strong, healthy in this niche of powerlifting and previously weightlifting, just in case people didn't know, Kym Murray was a weightlifter, and then pursuing your master as well. It's highly, highly impressive stuff. So back to the story. So you were at a point where you were basically regimented in almost everything.
Yeah.
And then we're coming off the back. It was, you said Worlds, then we were into COVID. And then coming out of that, I suppose COVID, was that a harder time or was it an easier time because you couldn't do anything else?
It was easy. I mean, I'm not sure if this is the case for a lot of people, but I mean, like, I was technically on a pay rise as well from COVID payments.
Yeah, yeah.
So part-time work, obviously, in a bar, in a restaurant or whatever, like, you're not making a lot of money. And at the time, I was probably bringing in like 120, 150 a week. Now, I'm very grateful I don't pay rent because I'm at home. And it was very much a case of like, well, finish my education and then I'll move out, because I simply couldn't afford to pay $8,000 for a course and then be dropping like, what, $550 a month? Yeah. It's just not feasible.
$550, staying Galway.
Staying Galway, I know. So COVID was like a bliss for me. Built my squat rack in the shed.
Oh yeah, I'd seen it. Your mom, there's a funny video of your mom back spotting you and the bar goes. And
she thought I died. She fully thought my neck snapped after that. Like, it went right over my head, nearly went through the floor of the shed. So yeah, good times. Yeah. And then during that, I also broke my toe as well.
I think I remember seeing that as well.
Yeah.
Jesus, that seems like a very long time ago. How'd you break the toe?
Last warm up on deadlift. It was so obviously junior nats got cancelled. This was like late 2021. I was having the peak of my life. Like, I'm sure Jay will back me up in this, saying like, nothing will ever compare to the peak I had for that junior nats. I was literally just going up and up and up. What was it? I think the week before junior nationals, another lockdown came in.
That's right, yeah.
Everything got cut. So we're like, okay, I'll do it at home. I'm training at home anyway. Doesn't make a difference. So got the bar and a set of 25 illegal plates from the gym and took them home with me. First deadlift session. First warm up. Snap.
Nice.
Straight down the toes. So finished up that deadlift session. I didn't know my toe was broken at the time. So took a few Panadol. Grand. Did my squat session the next day. Jesus. And then went to the doctors and got an x-ray.
That's pretty hardcore. Which toe was it?
My big one on my left.
You broke your big toe and you didn't even realize it?
No.
God damn.
Guys, it's very anticlimactic. Just so you know, like, it doesn't feel like anything. It feels like you just stubbed your toe.
Right.
That was it.
That's bizarre. Oh yeah, I once broke all the toes on one foot when I was like 19, and I did it. I was butt naked at the time. I vaulted out of bed because I was late for something, and I came down and like crunched all my toes, and they all just turned black. And I remember like limping around for the day, and I was like, they're fine. And then they were all like fucked up and crooked.
Yeah.
And the doctor was like, yeah, they're all broken. There's nothing we can do about it. Like, but they're all broken. And I was like, great. Still wrestled. Still wrestled. But yeah, no, I think that obviously speaks to your grit anyway, that you were able to persist and squatting through that. Because even now I know people that are like, oh yeah, I have a little bit of a stiff neck. I'm going to take a week off training. So we're progressing through. You're just after, so you got all the way up to Nationals 2022, this time last year. So what was it after that you were, what actually burnt you out in powerlifting? Was you just been doing too much of it? Did you have an underwhelming performance? What was it that burnt you out on that?
I'm still unsure as to what it was exactly. I think it was just like everything at once. So obviously first year is open. I thought I'd just come in, you know, all guns blazing, have a great time, you know, fresh out of the juniors, you know, I'd have kind of that side of powerlifting on my side. And it was just not it. I realised, I think it was also like, that was my 5th or 4th comp in a row I had cut weight for.
Yeah.
So it started off Worlds 2021, 3 weeks later, Junior Nationals, 4 weeks later, Euros, and then about 6 weeks later, Open Nats.
Yeah, that's a lot of competing very, very quickly.
Especially just after Christmas. I was sitting not far off from where I'm sitting now, and then have to cut again. Like, I was practically crying every single day, just begging my body to just literally lose the weight. Like, it was getting to the point I was texting Katrina and I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm not sure if I was working with her at the time or else she was trying to just give me advice.
She was giving you a dig out, yeah.
But no, I tell you, it was the lowest point in my life coming into that comp.
Well, so something that when you and I were discussing, like coming into when I invited you on the podcast, and you had mentioned you listened to Shane's episode, Shane's story, and something you could kind of twig with what his story was is as he dropped weight. So he was like healthy, like 93 to 96 kilo male, started cutting weight, and he started getting down around 83 kilos because he dropped those 10 kilos very quick. He started seeing issues with his libido, his ability to maintain or get an erection, which was very alarming to me when he told me about it, his energy, things like that. So, you know, he'd go to bed, he'd just want to read his book and go to sleep. And you had mentioned in the messages, you saw it go the other way when you decided to dedicate to being in the heavier weight class. You only realized then there were so many things out of balance for you. So talk me through some of that. Like what was going on, or how did you come to the realization, and what drove the decision to go up a weight class?
So that was a conversation, I think, between myself and Jay, or either between myself and some of the girls, where I was just getting so depressed and picking up so many injuries. Like at last Nats, I walked out a 50 kilo warm-up squat after weighing in and my back went.
Right.
I literally had to crawl up the stairs to TJ and be like, man, like I'm actually in chronic pain.
That man's a hero.
Yeah. Genuinely, like that, he has saved me on so many occasions. Like, I'm very blessed to be working with him. But if you actually watch my videos from Nats, you will see how awkwardly I'm walking out to the platform and how to unrack. I was just in so much pain.
Right.
I was covered in like etoflam, head to toe.
God damn.
And deep heat. And after that, I was like, I remember talking to my mom on the way home. Now, that was my best performance so far. I think that's my best total was 292.5 at 47. And I just remember looking at my mom and I was like, I genuinely don't think I can do this again.
Right.
And I think that was also one of the reasons where like I need to take a step away, reevaluate everything as to what I thought I could achieve with the sport. Because my whole goal was to just go abroad and compete internationally. Like, that was a goal since I was like 16, 17. So to kind of have that, and then the weight gain, that came very quick. And that was also a reason I didn't want to compete. So I went from, what was it, the 46, give or take, to about 53.
Yeah. Kilos, which is still, both of these weights are, like, don't get me wrong, I know you're a small person, but like 46 kilos is tiny.
Yeah.
Like, it's a tiny person. And you went up to about 53. And how did it feel in yourself?
Awful.
Really?
So I gained that in about 6 weeks.
Right, okay.
That was the biggest problem. I hated how I looked. Didn't want to go to the gym. Obviously, I was so focused on getting my thesis finished, which was like, that was my passion. Like, I went to do that master's solely to do my thesis on Bloody Sunday. That was what I wanted to do, and that's what I wanted to achieve. So I parked everything else.
Right.
Because I was like, as soon as I can get this out, that's it. I'll be back. Went back to training. Eventually got my body composition kind of slowly started coming back. But then, like you were saying, my like experience similar to Shane's, when I gained those 6 kilos, my hormones were like, genuinely, it was a roller coaster.
Right.
I got really depressed pretty much straight after nationals. Even if it was my best performance, I just didn't enjoy anything to do with the sport.
Can I just ask, that's would that be like a depression that would be outside the like most people talk about post-competition blues?
Yeah.
Was this like a more like intense version of that, or was it just this something you haven't experienced before?
No, I would never really get post-comp blues.
Right.
I was always quite steady, but I think it was just a fluctuation of hormones, of myself gaining weight, that I just I wasn't happy in myself.
Right.
Now that stems from like way back. But like Shane, when I was 47, kind of cutting, I'd have no interest in what anyone was doing.
Right.
Like, I genuinely had no energy.
Yeah.
I'd have enough energy to go train, do my job, come home.
Yeah.
My social life is actually diminishing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say it's kind of hard to think back on, like, you know, obviously what's more present, but back then, like my like dating history was like zilch. Like no interest in going on a date, meeting anyone. And it wasn't until like now I started coming around, I was like, oh, these options are out there. I was like, okay, interesting.
So do you think basically to stay in the under 47 kilo class all through your junior career, and then as you've come into the open, you were essentially kind of fighting against your own body to try and stay there?
So I think the first 2 years I was grand.
Yeah.
That was where my body naturally sat at 46.
Right.
That was fine. I might have to cut like a kilo. But like if you look back at my like track records, the first 2 comps I weighed in at like 45.
Yeah.
No issues. And then obviously I got older, your metabolism slows down. You know, I'm not 18 anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But
you're also training super hard and you've gained quite a bit of muscle. Like.
I'd hope so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, definitely.
after the like 8 years I put in.
Well, I mean, even down to, and this is the great thing about Instagram, because, and you're like a big fan of a selfie, you can see that you've definitely built a good amount of muscle mass over that period of time. Like most powerlifters do, they generally get like quite meaty hamstrings and quads. Usually we're all walking around big arses. You know, generally big chest, big shoulders, and big backs. So you've obviously built a good. Like, we're not bodybuilders now, but and particularly with the way Abs runs coaching and how we prioritize like a lot of our non-specific work. Generally, like, and you'll see it in a lot of lads, a lot of girls, fucking like Emma McDermott, like jacked to bits, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So I would definitely put some of it down to that. Like I was mentioning to you off camera before we started, like I'm competing under 93 now, and some of that is a battle because like my body fat's quite low, but just since I've started NABS, I've just gotten too jacked to bits, you know what I mean? Like it's just with the way we train. We train to a really high level. So I think it's like that, you probably, when you were younger and smaller, it was probably easier just to be there. But it seems like as you've gotten older, your body composition's changed, your lifestyle's probably changed quite a bit as well from when you were like 15, 16. At least I hope you weren't working in a bar when you were 15. You know, now you're at that stage where it's probably becoming much more of a battle to get under. So when you finally embrace then competing a weight class up, you said this was probably a conversation with Jay, conversation with some of the other girls, and then you started to notice the difference in your libido, your attraction to the boyos.
Well, and girls.
And the girls. Whatever floats your boat. Or whoever or whatever you're into. Good for you, you know? But my question then would be was it a tough decision to say, okay, I'm going to have to compete up a weight class for my quality of life? Because that's essentially what it boils down to.
No, to be honest, it wasn't until Nationals 22 that I could really see the detriments to my health and myself and my hormones and just my life in general. Like, I obviously that sounds a bit drastic, but like I wasn't like I was almost ill.
Yeah.
Like I was so sick for the last 5 comps. I had bronchitis from Worlds to Euros.
Right. Jesus.
Couldn't shift it. I was on antibiotics all the time. Like I remember having a conversation with Jay and he was like, how are you feeling this week? I was like, oh yeah, I have the flu again. And he's like, oh Christ, like
fuck's sake.
Had conjunctivitis when I was at Worlds as well. My eyes got really badly infected.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it was just from me sleeping in mascara.
Right.
That's so, because I woke up and my makeup was still on from the night before. Literally, and I remember Jane came up to me, she's like, you need eye drops right now. I was like, why? She was like, they're bright red. I was like, oh my God. So I was dealing with that, bronchitis, the flu, on top of trying to cut weight.
Yeah.
I was like, what was I doing?
Yeah, it definitely sounds like your body was throwing signs at you.
Yeah, and I was like, it's fine.
Yeah.
I literally just put mute on all of the It's like, show me a sign that you're not supposed to do this. And it's like, no, paying no heed.
Being sick, this is part of competing.
Like, this is just abs peak. Like, it's fine.
The notorious abs peak, yeah.
Yeah. And then it wasn't until after Nats, like I said, where I was like, okay, I'm just going to move up, fucking throw the kitchen sink at it.
Mm-hmm. Started working with Katrina Connolly.
Yes. I think that was just before Ab Series.
Mm.
And I was like, right, I need to get this weight more consistent. I was closing into like nearly going to 57s.
Yeah.
That was the point. I think my heaviest was like 55.
Yeah. How'd you feel at 55?
Disgusting.
Did you feel huge? Like,
it wasn't that I felt huge. It was the fact that like, so like if people don't actually know me, like I'm not even 5 foot tall.
Yeah.
I'm 4'11" and a half, like max.
Yeah.
I was actually struggling to go up and down stairs at 55 kilos.
I can't remember if it was an ab series or an IPF I helped out at. This is before I'd ever spoken to you or anything like that. You were in the back and I don't know who you were talking to, but you were with someone. I genuinely thought you were somebody's little sister. I thought you were one of the lifters, like little sister or
a child.
Yeah, straight up, like you're very, very small. So like, even I'm sure there's people like this is the point. I've had Jake Brennan in this chair who is literally 3 times your body weight. And it's probably bizarre for people to hear that, like going up and down the stairs, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, packing a few extra. There's a bit too much dip on this chip, you know?
Yeah. And it wasn't until I hit that like 53 kilo mark and I was like, right, okay, myself and Katrina, like I cut a little bit of weight before I started working with her. And I was like, right, I just want to get myself healthy, happy, and consistent with my eating. Because obviously, like I work in a hotel. So I'm not the best at planning or meal prepping.
Right.
I'm quite a lazy and convenient person, which is probably also why I'm in the 52s, because I couldn't stick to a diet.
Right.
So I eat what's convenient. So obviously, hotel food, restaurant food, it's not ideal for if you're trying to be an athlete.
Probably not the most macro-friendly food.
No, it's not. But it was the easiest for me at the time, and I could actually sub that in with my meals when I was working with Katrina. But after all that, I think I cut down to about 51, so that's in and around where I am now.
Yeah.
And it's only in the last, I'd say, just in and around when Shane's podcast actually came out, where I was like, oh my God, my hormones were non-existent pretty much. Like I said, like my libido was non-existent for so long. I had no interest whatsoever in going near anyone. I didn't even want anyone to be near me, like. And I'm not sure that was just due to my own like self-consciousness, whatever.
Well, I would kind of equate it to this. Like when you're actively trying to lose weight, you're putting yourself in a position where your body has now a limited number of resources or energy or calories or whatever you want to say to basically keep you alive. So you have to be able to do certain things. You know, you still have to be able to get up and move. You have to be able to potentially lift yourself, lift things and perform tasks. So your body's going to start getting rid of any non-essential. Like, for example, the riot is not essential to you staying alive another day. You know what I mean? It's great, but it's not something that like your body is going to prioritize. Like the production of the hormones or the feelings or the whatever it is that drives this is not necessarily imperative to you surviving another day. Same with what you'll hear people saying they're hangry or they were grumpy or they weren't themselves on a diet. Like they were not in a good mood. Again, you feeling good is not paramount to your survival. You can feel like shit and still live another day. So I think that's one of the kind of cycles people get caught into when they're trying to be a lighter weight or a certain body composition. And it's probably a good, now I'm sure there was a whole mental struggle that came with embracing being heavier, but it's great that you were able to see the benefits to it. Not just like, obviously in the sport, you're going to be eventually like when you fully, when you've been in that weight class for a while now, you're going to like be a lot stronger, move a lot better, recover a lot better. But even on a more social basis, you know what I mean? Like for energy for day-to-day life, your job, your education, dating, whatever it might be that's a priority, you're going to have so much more available resources now. And that's one thing I think people, that's like the dark side of diet. And I think sometimes, and particularly in the fitness industry, there's always people chasing, cutting and being leaner and all this. And it's I've spoken openly about it on the podcast. One of the things I do like about powerlifting is that it can encourage people, and I think particularly females who feel like a bit of social pressure to look a certain way or be a certain size or be a certain weight. It encourages them that you can still be incredibly feminine and attractive, or you can still have a body you see yourself feeling good in or performing well in or whatever it might be, and still be a little heavier, and it's not a problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. So it's great to hear that that's the way it's gone for you. And working with Katrina. I know Katrina's actually done something very similar as well. I've seen like her like she has like a reel or something, or a TikTok or something, where it shows her body composition change over time. So it's probably great to have somebody there in your corner who's done the same thing, and even just as a resource, whether it's emotional support or knowledge or whatever. And that's one thing we say to everybody. I've had Ben Crowell on a good few times. He'll speak to it. Working with Jay as well, having somebody you can bounce ideas off. Like Dan's the guy I go to for creativity, the guy behind the curtain, you know, for creativity and like what direction to take the podcast, guest selection, things like that. So it's always good to have somebody in your corner. So with that now, have you reignited your motivation for powerlifting?
I think this nationals really did give me a kick up the ass. Like it's something I don't know what exactly kind of lit the fire back. Maybe it was the fact that I didn't have a good performance at Ab Series. Like, it was 10 kilos below my best total at a higher weight class. Obviously, now I did compete in sleeves.
Yeah.
So I'm automatically going to be at a disadvantage, which was a given. But I don't know, my heart was not anywhere near it for Ab Series. I wanted to pull out every single training session.
Are you finished your Masters now?
Yeah. I graduated in November.
Was that the Ab Series you competed at?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if those are linked a little bit.
No, because I would have finished up in August.
Right. But what I'm getting at is like, obviously you mentioned at the beginning you're a regimented person. You like you plan, and then like how many years is the master? Like 8 years or some shit. 1 year. It was 1 year.
It was a 1 year full time.
God damn.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, you fucking smashed it. You 4 days a week. You said
4.
God damn, that's a lot of time. Yeah. So you were like full on, full force, all gas, no brakes after this thing, and then in August it's done, and then how did that like? Do you see how that might then have affected your day-to-day life and leading into the competition might have thrown you off kilter a little bit?
I think it left me with more downtime than I realised. So like obviously, like I said, I'm a bartender in a hotel. I work part-time. That has now increased. Like I'm 4 days usually. But before I was like 2 or 3. Obviously kind of finished up the masters and stuff. Still finding my feet in a new job. That like, so I'm not sure like if many people would know this, but like I was talking to Jay because I think I had a few questions on that anonymous poll from a few days ago.
Yeah.
And obviously some of the questions were like, oh, you haven't progressed in a while.
Somebody said that actually. I think you posted that, didn't you? And it's a bizarre thing to say.
I mean, whatever. It's water is off
a duck's back.
Yeah, that's the one. Nothing affects me like that on social media. Like I don't care if you have a negative opinion on me. I back myself 110% every single day. So whatever you say, it's not actually going to affect me in any way. But that, and there was another one like, oh, would you change coach and get a bigger total? I was saying this to actually Jake, and it was like, what's on an Excel sheet or file is not going to make you a world champion. And if it was, everyone would be doing it. That's not why I went to abs. That's not why I picked Jay. Like, I think people really need to understand that there's a lot more to it. And Jay kind of pulled me out of it and was like, they don't know the year or two you've already had.
Yeah.
So it kind of pulled me back. And it was like that one text message. I was like, actually, I kind of have something to prove now.
Yeah, good.
Like,
yeah.
I love being the underdog. I love people just kind of, no, she's there, but she's in the background.
You're like one of the crowd almost.
Yeah.
Do you think? Do you feel like you've been an underdog at every competition you've been at?
I don't think so. Like I came third in my first Open Nats at 2019. And I mean, in Ireland, yeah, I've always felt like an underdog. I'm not even close to the totals internationally when I was a junior. I was never going to win. So we're there for the fun.
Yeah.
That was always it. And I know a lot of other girls experienced that as well when they were competing abroad. But in Ireland, I've always felt like I was kind of bottom of the pack.
Right.
And I had something to prove. So I'd much prefer people to be like, she's there, but she's not much.
Yeah, kind of write you off, and then you can come out and say, fuck you.
Like, I'll admit myself, like, I don't handle pressure very well. I don't. I don't want people to be like, oh, she's going to win. And then I'm like, fuck.
Yeah,
what if I don't?
Don't fucking put that on me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Like, so over the course of time now, like the powerlifting scene has changed. You know, more and more people are coming into it. I think at one stage, like even now at this nationals, I think there's only one girl in the under 47s now.
Joanne, yeah. So I honestly found it really unfortunate because if I knew there was just going to be one, I probably would maybe have thought about cutting in just to actually try and fill the class.
Yeah.
And obviously Pat isn't competing, which is a big shame.
It is a shame. She's a great lifter, yeah.
I know like Janine's just had a baby.
Yeah.
So that's kind of all of us gone.
Yeah, well, do you know what the thing is that as time goes on, I think most girls are probably walking around closer to something to under 63 to the under 76s. I'd imagine they're like the most packed.
Standard class, yeah.
Yeah, they're like the most packed, under 63, under 69, under 76. And then for males, it's usually going to be under 83, under 93, under 105. Just based on most populations, people walk around those weights. So, but as time goes on and more people come into the sport, we are going to see more classes start to, like this. I don't know if you saw the meme Jerky's made of the 83 class. It's all the dudes in the sauna together, but it's like the most stacked class at nationals now. There's like 12 lads in there or something like that, just to make up the room, because some of the other class, like my class, only has 5 in it this year, which is bizarre because most usually under 93 is quite packed. But I think as time goes on, that as the classes get more stacked out, and I'm sure this is something you realize, or most powerlifters realize, especially when you've been in it a while, it's much easier to be competitive when the pool is smaller. And then as the pool gets bigger, the competition will start to come up and up and up. But I think that's what drives people to stay better. Like, for example, you've been in the sport a good long time and you've actually put a good amount of kilos on your toe. Like, we can see your trend is going up over time. Like, yeah, everyone's got shit comps every now and then. Like, look at my open powerlifting. But it's a good thing to see in the sport that as the people that tend to stick around tend to be the ones that come out the best in the end as the competition comes up as well. So you mentioned it there earlier on, like at one stage you're walking around about 55. Do you think over the course of the next couple of years, assuming you stay in the sport, if you stay in the sport, do you think you'd go up a weight class again? I know it's probably early days.
No, honestly, I think I'll be in 57s sooner than actually most people would think. Like, I'm under 52 now.
Yeah. Walking
around like 51.5, 51.6.
Yeah.
Like a good 6-7 month bulk.
Yeah, and you'll be there.
I'd easily be 54, 55. Now, do I want to go up against the 57s? Just yet, no.
Okay.
No, I don't think.
A bit more ground first.
Yeah. Like myself and Jay have discussed a big off season.
Yeah.
Unsure if I'll compete again this year after Nats. Now, that's saying a lot. I could get the itch 8 weeks out.
It happens, yeah.
But we've a lot more growing to do in the 52s. Like, I know I can put on a lot more muscle and a lot more size.
So is that something you're like, I know probably for when you went initially from the mid 40 odd kilos now up to the lower end 50 kilos, it was probably a bit of time where that was a bit of a challenge to your body image, as you mentioned. Do you think you'll be prepared to walk around that bit heavier again now? Do you think you've kind of put the time in mentally to say, I am going to be comfortable being 53, 54, 55 kilos walking around if you had to? Like, do you think you can, because that can be a big break point for everyone, but particularly females. There's a lot of value placed on body image. Do you think that will present its own challenges, or have you overcome these challenges already?
So before I actually ever came into powerlifting or anything like that, I was doing like bikini,
right,
like bodybuilding. That was my style of training until I kind of found weightlifting and powerlifting. So I still do have a bit of body dysmorphia from those days. Like, when before I started competing, I was like I said, 46. I was shredded. Like, I had a full 6-pack walking around easily. There wasn't like, that was it. It was simple. I had striations in my chest, in my shoulders. And like, if I tried to get that now, I'd probably I'd have to cut like a leg off to get the weight. But I don't know if I could manage walking around like that again. Just from the first time that I gained that weight, I hated how I looked. Like,
what was it? Like, what did you see in the mirror? Because I'm sure there's probably people telling you, no, you look great, like you look fine. So what was it that you, like, what is it you're seeing? Because I've had conversations here with James McLaughlin. I've had some of the super heavyweight guys. I had Shane on. Shane's quite a stoic person, so he seemed fine whether he was near 100 kilos or if he was near 70 kilos. But when people talk about body dysmorphia, I think it's like this catch-all term. So what did it mean for you? Like, what is it about yourself? Was it the way clothes fit? Was it the person you saw looking at you in the mirror? Was it the way you felt in your own skin? What was it?
It was primarily like how I felt my own skin, and then also kind of what I was seeing back in the mirror. Like I said, over the course of a couple of weeks, I had put on like 5-6 kilos. And for someone my height, that's huge. Like,
yeah.
And it didn't spread really. It kind of went to my head mostly and my stomach. and kind of like I carry most of my fat in like my upper back, my arms. So obviously like clothes weren't really fitting very well. Like obviously I had to go up sizes, which like I don't really care about clothes or clothes, but what number on a scale or a number on a shirt is not going to affect me. But it was like how I looked when I was doing like check-in photos, or how I looked when I was just walking around the gym. I was like, shit, I'm not lean anymore. It was the first time in my life I really, really stuck out to a bulk to the point where like I had no, like, I kind of looked like Mr. Potato Head. That's the only way I can describe myself. Like, I just looked out of shape.
Right.
And like, I'd never been to a gym in my life. And that's how I felt. And I was like, I don't want to be like this anymore.
Let me actually, this is actually an interesting talking point, because I've had the lads sitting opposite me here that are like super heavyweight lifters. Like, if you didn't know they were powerlifters, you would think they were just fat fuckers that sat at home all day, you know? So when we talk about optics in the sport, because you were saying, like, you know, you notice, geez, I'm not fucking lean anymore. I fucking don't even look like I train. Like, and I'm glad to see powerlifting is shifting in a way, because we are seeing more people that are genuinely athletes. In fact, I will give you an example right now that is, it's quite a big compliment to you, actually. I presented a workshop to FlyFit, the staff, in February 2022. And I put together...
I think, I remember this.
Yeah, so I put together this slideshow. And so part of the slide was to, at one point towards the end, I was kind of dispelling some myths about powerlifting. You know, like, all powerlifters do is squat, bench, and deadlift. I was like, no, this depends on the block of training you're in, blah, 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 blah. And then one of the other ones was that essentially all powerlifters are just like fat dudes, fat people that just, you know, sit around and take 15-minute breaks in between sets on their fold-out chairs, you know? So I gave them the example of male and female international athletes that are in very healthy body compositions. So for the males, I used Mark Stell and Cian Madden. And then for the females, I used Jane Jones and yourself. So this was to show, again, these are regular PTs, many of them either from a GAA background, bodybuilding background, know nothing about powerlifting, just the stereotype. And then for that stereotype, and this is not calling anybody out, I just use as the stereotype what they'd imagine when they think of a stereotypical powerlifter. You've got people like Eamon Harford and like Laura Vogelsang. And I was using these as examples. Again, it's not to the detriment of anybody else, but it's to show that, like that, you can maintain a healthy body composition and still perform at a high level. Now, obviously, there's the difference there of tested and untested and things like that, but still, to give it a more generalized point, is it a priority for you as an athlete to maintain a certain degree of leanness then, even in a sport where it's not really required, like powerlifting? Is it important to you as a person to say, well, while powerlifting is this big piece of my life, I don't want to become a big fat mess for it? Like, I want to be somebody who is in shape or is an athlete, or the value in how I look is in other parts of my life, so I don't want to sacrifice this to get a couple more kilos here.
So I've never really felt that, like, oh, I have to look a certain way. Now, like, we're Irish. We don't have the best genetics.
We do not.
For sports like these.
Number one.
Like, realistically, like, who were our two best, like, lifters or powerlifting was Barry Piggott and Brona McPeak. Like, you can easily say Barry was genetically gifted, looking at him. Same with Brona. So when you kind of compare a lot of the other Irish lifters to them, like, they were a high standard back then, and they still hold that today.
Yes.
Their totals still stand today, which says a lot. Like, they were far ahead of their time before a lot of us were. So when I kind of see that, I was like, okay, I may not have the best genetics, but I know the foods I like to eat do tend to put me in a position where, like, okay, I can actually look well as well. So, like, myself and Katrina were talking, she was like, okay, you need to get in like 3 square meals a day. Now, those 3 square meals were like, I'd have just under 2,000 calories in 3 meals.
Oh, right.
So, like, I like to eat, but they're calorie dense.
Yes.
Because I actually hate eating volumes of food.
Right, okay.
Like, I find it a chore.
Yeah.
So I try to get as little amount of food with the highest calories.
Low volume, high yield. Yeah. I get you. Yeah.
So my breakfast is still the same as to when I was doing my bodybuilding days.
Okay.
So it's 2 eggs and bacon medallions fried up in coconut oil in a bagel.
Yeah.
Glass of juice. Salad. And that's when I usually go to train.
Yeah, it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, exactly. And then cereal post-training.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, can't beat it, yeah.
And
Easy
then
carbs.
Yeah, and then it's steak, jasmine rice with spinach.
All right. So if and I think that ties back into your regimented nature. Yeah.
I know what works. I know what digests well, which I think is hugely important as well for people to understand. Don't, like you said, don't change anything if it's not broken, because it will work to your advantage.
Yeah. You see people doing it coming into competitions. They do like bizarre things with their diet and then they're just shitting themselves the weeks coming in.
Like it's the worst thing you can do. So in the sense of like, sorry, I actually forgot what was the original question.
Don't worry. Do you know what, right? I think I'm the only person that can ask a question that lasts 3 minutes. So
I was like, what was the original question?
Like straight up, that is what I throw at people. I just go and go and go. I was asking, is it still a priority for you? Like, is maintaining a healthy body composition a priority for you? And not only that, but like so for example, Eamon Hartford, I'm not shit on Eamon. Eamon, I train with the guy, he knows. Eamon is super morbidly obese. But this is what he does, or the path he's taken to yield the best result in strength sports for him. Same with Jake. Jake, as I say to him when he sits opposite me, you're a big soft fucker. But like, he does that to be the first man in Ireland to total over 1,000 kilos, right? Yeah. So I get that for them, it's worth sacrificing, whether it's health or body composition or aesthetics, all right? Sound. And that's what I'm saying. Like you mentioned that when you bulked up, one of the downsides, one of the drawbacks was when you were talking about your body dysmorphia was you noticed when you walk in the gym in the mirror, you're like, fuck, I'm not shredded. I don't even look like I train. So this is obviously a priority. It's important for you to want to at least maintain some form of athleticism or a look. And I'm asking, would it be even if it meant like to the detriment of the sport? Because being honest, most powerlifters, most of the world-class powerlifters, especially natural ones, the people with the biggest totals, aren't the leanest people, you know? So where do you lie on that balancing act?
I think it still comes from my bodybuilding days where like I want both. You know, I want the cake and eat it as well. Yeah. So that's why I went to work with Katrina, because when I bulked myself, I went 6 weeks hell for leather and gained like 6 kilos and looked awful. Yeah. And
probably not the way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. I just kind of threw the kitchen sink at it and I was like, okay, eventually it will start to like maneuver over my body. It will spread a bit. No, that wasn't the case. And I was like, okay, Katrina, I was like, I don't really want to track macros because I was a bit fried. Yeah. From tracking for years and bulking and everything and cutting. I was like, I just can't look at my FitnessPal. I was like, it's PTSD at this point. Like, yeah. So she was like, okay, we'll track a food log. So basically, I just put in the meals that I was eating and she'd send it off. And like, I'd send it off to her. And she's like, okay, look, you're getting 4 square meals in a day. Maybe change whatever you're having in work for a high protein like wrap or something. And I was like, okay, I can do that. Yeah. And it slowly, eventually, like I lost a bit like water weight. Yeah. Pretty much. Like I was carrying just a lot of water weight and you could see it, like my face was kind of puffy. Yeah. And once that kind of like fell off a bit and I got moving again, really, that was probably the biggest thing as well. I wasn't training to the same intensity as I was for like the 4 years previous. I took a huge back step. Yeah. And once I kind of got back into a routine, enjoy training, actually pushed myself, I saw the results.
Yeah. So because it's probably a coinciding of a couple of things. You tried to bulk yourself, which is just a recipe for disaster in most cases. Like unsupervised child in sweet shop. Yeah. And then you were in this post Nationals 2022 downward slump, not as motivated to train, only training 2 days a week. So a massive drop off in output. But at least you recognize that having somebody come in, hold you accountable, or at least take the mental bandwidth off, that you don't have to hyper prioritize this. You can just send Katrina these logs. She's going to do the maths. She's going to do the homework and give you these small minor course corrections. It's actually something Ben talks about. We did a second podcast and he was saying like I'm going to fucking absolutely butcher his statement here. He put it really well. Basically, if a ship wants to change direction, it might only be this tiny little degree of change, but it's 1,000 miles of a different course down the way. So it sounds like that's what Katrina's doing for you. She might only be swapping this one thing here, but it's how that plays out down the line. Yeah. And then slowly over time, it became back more into a body composition you're obviously happier with. Yeah. Yeah. So it's great to see, like, because you do have, like I said, I wouldn't have used you as that example if I didn't think so. Like you managed to embody being quite a good competitive lifter in the lighter weight classes, and then also maintain a good healthy body composition. I think that's important because one thing, like as I mentioned, I admire about powerlifting is we promote the idea that people can gain weight and be healthy and still be fit. And in some ways, like for yourself, that actually benefited your life. You had more energy, you regained a libido, which is fucking great. But I do sometimes think the needle can go too far the other way. Like, I sometimes think if we are left unregulated, there's this like culture in powerlifting that it's just like more is better. Like, I've never met a group of people that consume so many Haribo and Cabbage Patch Kids or cabbage. What the fuck are they called? Sour Patch Kids, Cabbage Patch Kids. They're fucking teddy bears or something. But like, just the consumption of jellies, just like
shocking.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's like it's fun. It's nice. They're tasty. It's something you can easily have backstage at a comp, and you're not thinking about it. But I think sometimes we lean too hard on the gain, and I think we do sometimes push some people into unhealthy body compositions. Now, that's not to say that there's like, if we have people come into the sport who are what you would call, like, they would be on the higher end of the body fat or BMI or whatever you want to use, there's still a place for all these super heavyweight males, super heavyweight females, because we have these weight classes exist for a reason. And I'm not saying those people need to downsize, but I don't think we should. I think you can push people to a point where it's productive to gain weight, like particularly for you, like you're such a tiny athlete, that it probably would be a massive plus for you. Or if I had like I coach a guy, Evan Wallace is his name. He's he's about 72 kilos and he's a beanpole. Like, he's tiny, like skinny legs, quite strong for his size. But if I could get him up to around, I'd say 83 kilos, he's about 5'11", 6 foot. So he could easily fill out his frame. He'd still be jacked, still be ripped, more muscular, stronger, more energy. Don't think he needs any help on the libido, but still, the point remains that he is somebody who could benefit from gaining. Whereas I mentioned my mate Vinny before we started, Vinny Chung, great personal trainer, great powerlifter, but I actually think Vinny would be better off being a little leaner. You know what I mean? I think he has excess body fat to drop. I think he would actually be a competitive under 83 as well. But still, this is what I mean. I think it's like this balancing act, and I think it's a good thing about the culture, and I think it's good as a counterculture to bodybuilding, where everybody's just fucking like, it's all about, like we mentioned with Shane's podcast where he got so lean his Mickey didn't work, you know? So I think it's a tough balancing act for powerlifting. But it's actually something else I wanted to ask you about. Just given that from the time you've gotten into the sport, you mentioned you did intervarsities, was it? And then you did an open?
Yeah.
And then you were essentially straight onto like big platform meets after that, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think you put a lot of pressure on yourself as an athlete?
I don't think I've actually worked to my full potential yet. Mm-hmm. That's why I got back into powerlifting, was the fact that I was like, I know how dedicated I can be to something and how obsessed I can be to the last detail and really reap the rewards. And I don't think I've actually given myself the time for that for powerlifting. Like, my first open nationals, so back to intervarsities, I had appendicitis 2 weeks before intervarsities. Didn't get it taken out.
Right.
I just loaded myself up with painkillers, went to the hospital. This is the most me story ever.
Have you had any healthy meats?
No.
Okay. Just so I'm clear.
Appendicitis, first comp.
Great.
I was like, love that. I was like, but I'm not pulling out. Not a hope. I was like, so my best squat was 90 at the time. So I knew I could get the unofficial junior record on my last attempt. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going. Like, I don't care. Second comp, May Open, did that to get kind of a qualifier, not even a qualifier, but like, I wanted to do 2 meets back to back. Right. Just to basically throw myself in, get immersed, and then be fine. Yeah. And that's when, after that comp, I joined City Gym with Stephen. And Stephen was like, look, you do have the option to go to Worlds, but you will have to do an Open Nationals or a Nationals. This is before Junior Nationals was a thing. Yeah, yeah. That was later in the year, I think. And I was like, oh, actually, I think Junior Nationals may have been my first Nationals. It was that RevFit one.
Okay, right, yeah.
So I'm not sure if that was before or after the Open Nats.
It's I think as well, like,
they all kind of blur together at one point. Like,
the Irish PF is still quite new. Yeah. You know, like I think what was it, 2015 they brought it back, you know, so the landscape of it has changed a lot over the past couple of years. Like, there's no Last Chance this year, for example. So like it's an ever evolving calendar and ever evolving series of competitions. So I can totally understand why you might mix up some meets up there along the way. Yeah. But then, so I did whatever Nationals, and I was like, okay, I need to do this Open Nationals to secure my spot, essentially. 8 weeks
before Open Nationals 2019, I had another appendicitis to the point where it almost ruptured on the way in.
Have you gotten it taken out?
Yeah, no, I did get it taken out this time. But I had, what was it like? It's a 4 weeks recovery you're supposed to have after surgery.
Yeah.
No, it's keyhole surgery. So it's non-invasive.
Right.
But I competed like 6 weeks after I was in the gym.
That's, yeah.
So that was like, obviously, like if you look at my open powerlifting, you see I drop off.
Yeah.
Immensely. You still managed to place third.
Okay.
Throwing a few Hail Marys and myself and Steve out in the back, like. But that solidified my spot. And then obviously PB'd them when I went to Worlds. But it was then like my first experience of international, where, like I said, I wanted to be on an international team since I was 16, 17. That started off with me playing rugby sevens with Connacht.
Yeah.
And then moving into weightlifting. Didn't get the opportunity with both.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is kind of my last chance to get to an international, because obviously the age I'm at, there's not really a sport I can go into, or like boxing, where I could get to an Olympic stage or a big stage, because those girls have like 15 years experience on me. It's like, okay, powerlifting is kind of my last route to go international and make kind of something of myself as a person. So it's like, I knew I had the dedication, I knew I had the passion. So I was like, okay, I need to find something that I can actually throw myself into and that would benefit me in the long run. So I was like, okay, powerlifting is that.
Okay, do you know? So this is why I ask, right? Because that's what I'm saying about like your like. Do you have high expectations of yourself? Because even in the way you speak, you're like, talking about like boxing at an Olympic level. You're talking about like going abroad either in rugby or in weightlifting, and now you've done it with powerlifting. Like, I suppose you can only really, like, I can only see this externally because you are you, so you can only know how you see the world. And well, of course, international. What are you talking about? Like, what else would there be? Like, so this is what I'm saying to you as somebody who's in the sport as well, but like I coach quite a number of athletes. Most people are just happy to do a local meet. Like, they're like, I did an open, I got 300 dots, and you're here like, if I don't make the fucking team, it's not good enough, So I think it's interesting when you talk to people who, like, as you mentioned, you've done basically two like open level meets, and then essentially every other one has either been a high profile meet like the AB series or an international competition, be it Worlds or Euros or whatever it might be, or like open nationals, junior nationals, things like that. Like, these are all really high like, no one can just walk in and do most of these things. You have to be to a certain level of athlete to do it, and you still think you haven't even tipped off near your full potential yet.
No.
So we're still yet to see the best Kym Murray.
It might take another like 8 years, but like, we'll get there.
The beauty of powerlifting, though, is like, it's
a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. And it's not exactly like it's something that is dependent on age to train for. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's what I'm interested to see now is, speaking of like, for example, junior lifters, is if we get juniors, and like yourself, you start as a junior, let's just say you stay in powerlifting another 10 years. Like, the potential growth you have from the training background you have behind you is massive, because you're so well versed in the skill that you only have more time to grow then and iterate on what you've already done. Because what we tend to see happen is most people get in and get out in like the first 18 months to 3 years.
Yeah.
They get in, they get a few PBs, it gets hard and they fuck off, and that, or like they'll be kept in it for the social element, which is one of the better parts of powerlifting. But and you've spoken to that, like you mentioned a couple of the girls at the beginning who you've obviously got a massive social structure around you. I'm sure this weekend is going to be fucking phenomenal.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm sure like when all the clubs come together, we get that. Like, we get like a good.
It's a little community
for sure.
Yeah,
and there's massive value in that. One thing I wanted to ask you, I do want to ask a bit more about like mindset, background, how driven you are. But there's one thing I did want to ask earlier on that I want to come back around to. So we mentioned you put like question boxes and things up on Instagram, and you received some like, there's a bit of finger wagging and finger pointing and things like that. And it's something I talked a little bit with Raquel Ria, who was on the podcast as well, another great powerlifter. So do you as a female athlete in the sphere of powerlifting, do you receive a lot of negative comments online?
I think I'm lucky enough where it's very slim. Very, very slim. I'd say like 1%. Like, realistically, obviously TikTok, I just can't use it anymore. If I get one more comment about my bench arch, I'm done.
That's what I wanted to ask, yeah.
Like, it's just, I can't, like...
Let it out, Kym. Let the intrusive thoughts
I
out.
hate the 12-year-old boys that comment about my bench arch. I hate it. But no, it's just like the ignorance of not wanting to learn what you're actually commenting on. Like, would I comment on, let's say, like, Kelly Harrington's form in boxing. Like, would I go out and put a comment and like, oh, you did this wrong? No, because I have no knowledge as to what she's doing. And that's what bothers me. When people comment on something they actually don't know anything about. Fair enough, you ask a question, you learn. My inbox is always open for someone who wants to ask, like, oh, how do you train? Like, what's your structure? Or like, why do you do certain things this way? Which is also why I made the ebook.
Yeah. Oh yeah, shout it out. Kym Murray's powerlifting ebook. Get on it.
Yeah, it's like, it's one of those things where I had so many people, like girls especially, messaging me being like, oh, I'm doing my first comp, like, do you have any tips? And that's kind of why I made it, because I never had that when I first started. I didn't even know squat depth was a thing for intervarsities. Didn't even know I needed a handler.
Yeah.
I literally rocked up and was like, shit. And Sarah Gardner swooped me up like a lost dog and took me on for the day. But like, if it wasn't for that, I would have been in the depths.
Yeah, I think that's a good lesson. Like, I know, especially when I handle my athletes, what I always think to myself is, who would I have wanted at my first meet? Who would I have wanted back? Who do I want with me at my competitions? It's why I learned it last year. It's why I like having Jake as a handler. Because like we talked about, the reason you like working with Jay Farrant is because it's input, output. You like just like, get the fucking finger out, Kym, stop being a bollocks, shut the fuck up, go do the job. Yeah. That's what I like as well. Jake could be like, right, we're fucking loading this and a bit grand. You know what I mean? I like that. Now, I know other people prefer a different way, but still. But bringing it back around to this. So I've talked to Raquel a little. We've chatted like on WhatsApp about this. We will occasionally send each other about like 20 minutes worth of voice messages and take about 2 weeks to get back to each other, just because it's fucking loaded.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to have her back on, because did you listen to her one?
Yeah, I did. I really liked it. Yeah.
She's so articulate.
I know. I'm so jealous.
Do you know what the best thing was about that session? Like, I came down and I was still working fly fed at the time. I was knacker tired, and I just let Raquel go, and I was like, yes. And I'm looking forward to having her back on again for that exact reason, because I think now she knows what the atmosphere is and she's just going to get into it. But we've talked a little bit, and we've talked specifically about that. So I wonder, firstly, what drives people to leave negative comments online? That's one thing I'm curious about. And then the reason I asked you specifically, had you received negative comments online, is because before, I was not, obviously, I'm a bloke, so I'm not privy to it. Like, I don't get comments on things, you know? So, and if I do, it's one of the lads leaving a little gorilla emoji, you know what I mean? So naturally, girls tend to get more interaction online. Yeah. So comment like, yes, queen, go girl, you know, fire.
Always.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I see it. Like, you leave some for Shauna. It's great. Yeah. Icon. Amazing.
She is my icon. Like.
But the thing about it is that I'm always curious about is, I wonder why the proclivity for negative comments on females' gym videos is dudes. I wonder what possesses, like, fair enough, if people want to level a genuine criticism at what you're doing, you know, fair enough. I don't think it's it's unsolicited advice, so maybe keep it to yourself. But I wonder what it is about it. Why are, like you mentioned, why are these young dudes logging online, seeing a girl doing a bench press and getting so triggered by it that they need to leave a comment? Like, and this isn't me like trying to find a way to go, oh, insecure masculinity. I'm actually trying to figure out what it is, what prompts them to do it. Like, what is setting them off so much that they have to say something? Is it they think are they trying to help? Are they thinking they're trying to shame you into doing it a certain way? I'm so curious about that.
Like, with some of the interactions I've had, you know, now, fair enough, I've actually had some fellas genuinely message me being like, why do you do it?
Right.
And obviously, it's the point of powerlifting is move something heavy A to B. As long as it's within the rules, we're going to take the shortcuts.
Yeah, buddy.
Like, I mean, obviously now the bench route has come in. So
in the IPF.
Yeah, in the IPF. So I can't set up how I used to. Now my arch is still big enough, but I don't think what people realised when they were leaving these comments is the fact that, like, my rack height on Alico for bench is 1.
Yeah, it's tiny, yeah.
Like, I have little T-Rex arms.
Yeah.
So I was like, you can see it on deadlift. Yeah, my bench might have been big for 47s, but my deadlift was falling very, very far behind because I didn't have the long arms. The bar. Yeah. So I was like, why are they so triggered over this? But I assumed maybe it was like their ego being hurt with the fact that, oh, some small girl can bench like a plate and they can't. I don't know. Like, there's fellas in the gym, in my home gym back home, that would struggle benching a plate. Yeah. Like, it is what it is. Like, strength will come. Well, and naturally, if, just say, I could outbench a fella today, in about 3 months' time, you're probably going to be doubling what I am. So, like, it just takes time. And I don't think people understand now with powerlifting, like, I don't really understand why the younger or not even younger, like the lighter women's weight class. Like I see a lot of men comment on, do you know Tiffany Champon? Is that Champon?
I do not. Is she an American powerlifter or something?
47 kilo French open. She has, like, she's the highest total world record. She's still a junior. Like, incredible lifter. Like, she's about the same size as me, but jacked.
Yeah.
And the amount of comments you see on King of the Lifts when people complain about her form, or, oh, like, she squats a certain way. Like, we all know the French style of squats.
Yeah, yeah.
Feet very narrow, feet, like, toes out, like. And I'm like, these are fully grown men. I'm like, I'm sorry a 47 kilo girl out squats it. But there's no need to just be rude about it.
Well, the thing that I'm curious about it is, so people that are even looking at this content online are obviously training or in the gym, or they've liked enough gym content to see this stuff pop up. So surely they realize there's CrossFit, there's bodybuilding, there's powerlifting, there's strongman, there's different ways, there's different disciplines for things, right? So even excluding, like Tristan and I did a whole episode on why like technique is like this fucking false economy and it's linked to injury. So it doesn't matter if somebody's doing something away you don't like. It doesn't fucking matter. Shut the fuck up, right? But surely it's such a, like, this is the point I would make to most people. Most adults don't exercise. So you're already in the minority, right? And of the people that do exercise, how many take it actually serious enough to go more than once or twice a week? And then of those people, how many of them are even in a discipline like as niche as powerlifting or bodybuilding or whatever? So to then turn around and start pointing fingers at each other about range of motion, technique, excuse, I'm not, or maybe if you don't like it, right? Fair enough if you silently don't like it, but I'm wondering what possesses people to go on the internet and leave a comment on some lifter's page, right? Even with King of the Lifts, right? That's a page, you know what I mean? It's not a person necessarily. While they might be coming at the person in the video, it's not necessarily they're talking on King of the Lifts about it. But like, it's, as you mentioned, you would receive some negative feedback on TikTok, you know? So, but they know that they're leaving that comment to you. I've seen it with my own. Do you know what I've seen a lot of? There's a girl I coach. She's actually moved to Oz now. Hopefully she gets a powerlifting meeting over there. She would post, I had brought in competition plates into FlyFit so she could use them more. She did the July Open last year in 2022 in Limerick. And people were like so pissed that she pulled like 135 in training or something like that. But we use like the thin Alico plates. And somebody's like, that's 75 kilos max. That's like 85 kilos max.
The trigger that pulls, I'm like, I'm sorry you can't count.
Yeah, but
like it's 2 plates.
But that's it. Like I need to know why. I need to know what pisses them off enough. Like, fair enough, it pisses them off. I'm sure like you see things on the internet that piss you off. But like,
I don't feel the need to comment on it though.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
I think it's just also a maturity thing. Now, like I said, like when I did my thesis, it was on Bloody Sunday. Like that's a very strong political statement in itself. Now, what happened? Look, I'm not going to get into it. Like, we all know what happened. The facts are there, and a lot of people are still trying to actually get the price paid for it. Like, but like me, I post a lot about what happened, and it's funny enough that the only thing I've gotten a negative comment on is my training. I have never had a comment said to me about the political stuff I share, or because I know that can be taken the wrong way. Yeah. Especially by like a lot of like the British followers that I have. Now, they obviously will see it from a different point of view because they're not Irish. Yeah. We all know the standpoint, like. But it's very funny how they're so open to have a conversation about that. Would it be something in training that might trigger someone? Yeah. I'm like, there's bigger and more important things for you to actually comment on and to spend your time focusing on. Not how some small girl benches. Yeah,
I think it's, do you know what I would put that down to? So, any like mainstream like political point, even whether it's something from from years ago in our own history or something that's happening now in the States, which is just like always a clown show, right? Yeah. I think it's because people are detached from it unless they are politically
inclined.
Yeah. Unless they're in that sphere where they're like invested, like, in one side of the political aisle or the other, or a stance on a particular thing. Most people, I would say, that follow yourself or follow myself, most of them probably aren't bought into politics, but they're all bought into training. Yeah. So I think that's probably why people feel the need to comment on the thing they're emotionally invested in, or they have a sense of like their identity is like tied up in it, And but like that's what I mean. Like, why is it typically like I could fucking post something retarded on my story or on my page of me doing something outrageous, and nobody will say anything. Like most people say, do you ever see that one dude that like does all these mad deadlifts, doing kick flips and all in his in his shed, or like deadlifting his missus doing like dumbbell press, and everyone just laughs about it, you know? Like it's fucking crazy.
I know.
But why is it that I wonder? See, this is actually like, this isn't even like a podcast discussion. It's more me spitting out loud and getting your thoughts. Like I'm bouncing it off you to see what you think. I wonder, is it right? So let me ask you, is it mostly dudes that try and correct you?
Yeah. Or it's mostly dudes. If it comes to like comments made, it's nearly always male.
Yeah.
But now I might get a female the odd time, but they will say it in a less passive aggressive way. And I think that's the main difference I've noticed. So if a girl, like some of my videos of like my squats from training a couple of years, like from a year ago when I was at my peak.
Yeah.
Some of them went like viral-ish on Instagram. I got like, I think one of them got like nearly 100k views.
Right.
Which is massive for like my following still small-ish when you consider people who make a living out of social media.
For sure.
So like for me to get that, I was like, oh shit. But with that came a lot of people messaging me like, oh, what are you sniffing? Because obviously I'm a huge advocate for ammonia and smelling salts.
Didn't know what you were going to say. You're an advocate for there now for a second. I was like, all right. Now we know what Kym Murray's all about.
Like nearly every comp, you'll see me nose deep in a bottle of ammonia.
Yeah, smacking yourself and all.
Yeah. Like I'm a big advocate for that because it helps my training.
Yeah.
But like so many people didn't know what it was. And then the amount of comments I had, like I think I doubled 100 kilos. That was my best ever double for squats. I had so many people commented on it being like, oh, why is there so many spotters, etc. Like this weight is nothing, blah, 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 like in the comments. And I was like, this is literally just for my safety. Why does that bother you? Like, would you rather I have failed and actually injured myself trying to dump the bar or break equipment, which is a high possibility, like.
Yeah.
And we all know Eleiko and ER equipment aren't cheap.
Yeah, it's expensive stuff, yeah.
So I was like, why does it bother you that there's 3 people spotting me and not one? Like, these are the nitpicky comments I was getting. Or people who couldn't add up what was on the bar.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that's not 100 kilos. That's like 50 at most. And I'm like, you can clearly see the plates. Yeah. It's a simple math equation.
So that's always the reason I asked that, is that I wonder, is it a sense of like, so the gym stereotypically, if you look back at like the 1970s, you look at like Pumping Iron with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And have you ever seen that documentary?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. So it's like really like, it's all just big buff dudes in this dark little hole with all these ripped benches and rusty old equipment. They're all just banging it out. So it's very stereotypically a male space. And over the course of time, gym culture has shifted and it's now inclusive of everybody, but I still think there's like elements of that still there. Now, for better or for worse, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? That's not really the point of the discussion, but I wonder if it's still this inherent sense that some lads have that like, oh, like gym and training is like
a
lad thing. So I'll correct you because I just inherently know more. You know
what
I mean?
Mansplaining. We love a mansplaining.
In essence, like, you know what I mean? And this is, again, like I'm very pro masculinity, I'm very pro male, very pro female, very pro femininity, whatever it is. But I'm trying to like get into the meat and bones of what would motivate people to say it or do it. You know what I mean? Like, I'll give you a prime example of the reverse of that. Like if let's say you and I are walking down the street and we see like a crying kid, I'm probably going to let you deal with it because you're probably going to be a lot less threatening to this little kid than I am. You know what I mean? Just by the nature of like, well, you're fucking like 4'11" and probably
you probably feel more at home.
Exactly. You probably think you're another kid, but you get what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So, or like, like then there's the whole stereotype of like the dudes at the barbecue and they all just stand around the grill even though only one of them's cooking. Like, you know, there's just these roles we just fall into naturally. You know what I mean? I'm not saying there's not exceptions to this, but that's what I wonder if it's lads just the assumption of authority in that position, for better, for worse. And yeah, I'm always interested to hear, like, you don't really seem that pushed. You don't seem that bothered by it, to be honest. Because I always wonder, does it get under people's skin? So you strike me as that, like, you've obviously got a good following online. Like, let's be honest, you have a bit of following. People know you internationally as a Irish powerlifter. You've represented the country. So your visibility is going to be quite big. You know what I mean? For a powerlifter specifically, you know what I mean? You've got good visibility. So I'm always curious, as with more eyes comes more mouths and people, or more fingers, leaving more comments. And I'm always curious to see how people handle it. But it seems like social media is, you obviously, you enjoy social media. You post on your story a lot, you post your life, you have a good time. But you haven't really had any major negative experiences with it other than just annoying comments, I guess?
I don't think so, no. Like, obviously, you know how everyone used like the anonymous app?
Yeah.
Obviously, like, there's going to be people who will fully take advantage of that.
Yeah, I've got a few, yeah.
I'm aware, like, I don't like everyone and not everyone's going to like me. Do I care? No. Because I know full well those people will not come and say it to my face. So why would I care about what they wrote on a screen? I just don't. Like, I've better things to be worrying about with my time than someone just send me a message that's nasty.
Yeah.
Because dwelling on it isn't going to change the fact that they wrote it or that I read it. But like, so I'm not sure like how many people like who know me like obviously personally, but like my mom is a psychotherapist.
Right. Okay.
So,
very interesting.
Yeah.
And a great back spot on the squats.
Yeah. Best spotter. She's the best knee rapper as well I've ever had.
Really?
I won't even lie. She rapped my knees 10 out of 10. Like, it was perfect every time.
Bring her to the next ab series.
I'm going to. But like, in saying that, like, I've had a therapist as a mum.
Yeah.
For God knows how many years now, where she's like, you reacting to it is all they want. They're like, the only thing you can actually change or control is your reaction and your outcome of it. So she was like, if you have the option to just ignore it, she's like, why not take that road?
Yeah.
Instead of dwelling over it all the time. Like, I had a brief conversation with Dawn in response to one of the questions I had where it's like, why don't you change coach? Like, essentially, like, oh, you're not working with Jay and it's not going well, that kind of way.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, that comment was seriously rude. And I was like, actually, it kind of was. I was like, I'm aware that my total isn't great. I'm aware I'm not the best powerlifter in Ireland. But I mean, I'm having fun. And that's all that matters. Like, people seem to lose sight of the fact that this sport gives back nothing. I'm not getting, like, my food's not being put on the table from this sport.
Yeah.
Like, it's not paying my bills. So why would I give it the time of day or make it more important than my job?
Yeah.
So, like, to have a comment like that could have thrown me off, especially right before Nationals. That could have actually thrown me in the bin about 2 years ago. But right now, no.
Yeah, you've come a long way with it, obviously.
Yeah. Like, that's a lot of the things that people didn't realise. Like, I took that huge break just for my mental health, basically. Because when I was transitioning out of 47s, and obviously I went from like a junior to an open, and I was saying to you as well, like, that was kind of a big jump within my life as well.
Yeah.
You know, coming into the adult world for the first time, I'm like, oh God, I can't just have like, oh, I'm in education.
Yeah.
Type, like, have that kind of like safety net. I don't have that anymore. I actually have to go out and work and make my own money and create my own career. And no one gives you a plan for that. Like, the only structure
you gotta figure it out,
yeah. So the only structure I had with my life was powerlifting. So that's kind of why I brought it back into my life. Once I was like, okay, mental health it's back, normal. Did my time with therapy, spoke to my mum a lot. And the girls are like, okay, yeah, it's probably time you get like the finger out. So in response to negative comments, like, I just don't care.
Yeah, you can detach yourself from it, like.
Yeah, and I think that's why I love doing the Q&A so much.
Yeah.
Because I obviously know I'm going to get one or two that's like, you're really shit at squats.
Yeah.
Or like, doing OnlyFans. I'm like,
yeah,
fuck's sake. I'm like, why? Like, no.
Do you know who gets that more? Shane Story gets that more than anyone else I ever see all the time. Or like, what is it? Something for pay, or like I don't know, pics for pay or something like that. Like him posing or doing like muscle poses.
So funny.
I mean, he's a handsome dude, like, you know, so he's jacked, you know. Maybe people are into it.
Go on, Shane and Emma.
Yeah, go on, Shane. Your first 2 subscribers here, you know. But
I found that a wild one. As to like, if I do an anonymous question, I know I'm going to get that at least once.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is just weird and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because like, I've gotten it in my DMs from people as well.
Really?
Yeah.
How brazen.
I was like, fair play for having the balls. Like,
yeah, because like obviously you know who it is, like, you know.
Yeah, and I was like, right, okay. I was like, and I've answered it a couple of times being like, look, with the career I want and my job, I don't want like a manager or a future partner down the line to be like, oh yeah, I saw this online. Like, why? Like, I don't get it now. It's not for everyone. I get that. And the girls that do it, I do support them. Like, I know some girls are my friends and they do OnlyFans. Like, off you go. I don't care. But it's just not for me.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's almost rude to get that question or to ask someone to do it.
Yeah.
If they are not already promoting it themselves, please don't go out and ask people to do it.
Yeah. So make no mistake, anybody listening, don't worry. The girls know if they want to make the money, they know what OnlyFans is. You don't need to ask them, have they considered it?
If we want to post up pictures of our tits, we will do it, no bother.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
We just don't want it.
Yeah. Listen, there's enough people doing it. Like, and just so everybody knows, Pornhub's free. So
this is what I mean. I'm like, why are you so desperate? Like, I know like there's a lot of powerlifter women that do it already, like especially in the States.
Yeah.
Like I follow a lot of them and they're making fucking rakes of money and great for them. But I mean, like, what, you can still access porn.
Yeah. I think it comes down to knowing the person.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, you see somebody who you know in another walk of life in a compromising position. I think that's like the appeal. You know, I used to work, I went to school with her and I'm looking at pictures of her baps, you know?
Okay, cool. But like, maybe just go try Ryder. Do you know what I mean?
Like, do you know what? The vast majority of lads are not very good at that, talking to the girls. So, you know, kind of a whole other topic of discussion. But look, one thing, like last real point I want to get onto with you is that you mentioned you had your mom's therapist, so you have a good support network there. You mentioned Katrina, you mentioned Sarah Gardner, your coach with Jay, you like his coaching style. It works for the type of athlete that you are. You've been an athlete for basically almost your whole life by the sounds of things.
Yeah.
So mindset is naturally a massive thing for you. Support network is massive. But I noticed in the notes that you mentioned that no one's going to do the work for you.
100%.
So it definitely sounds like you are incredibly driven as a person. Would I be right in saying that? Because now, this is the point. I think when we internalize, we're like, am I though? Am I that driven?
Yeah.
Like, right, in comparison to the average person, you've achieved a master's, you competed internationally in powerlifting. After a myriad of other sports, weightlifting, rugby, you were considering boxing, it sounds like, at one stage.
To be honest, I actually still am. I really want to do like another sport outside powerlifting.
Amazing, yeah.
So either it's like BJJ or again another powerlifter goes into it.
Yeah,
like,
that's a meme now.
Yeah. But I always want to do something more physical.
Yeah.
Since like the only reason I stopped playing rugby was because I got concussed.
Yeah.
And it was at the time it was like you just can't come back. So would I play now though? No. I'd be terrified to see some of those women running at me.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's gotten, the level has come up a lot.
Oh, it's insane.
I'll actually say to you, just a combat athlete. I had my good friend Dave Fusos on here for episode 0. It was our pilot episode. He's done a powerlifting meet. He's a professional Thai boxer. He calls powerlifting his holiday sport. So when he's not on fight prep, he'll powerlift.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think that's the beauty of it. But the point I'm driving home here is that maybe again, because it's internally, maybe you don't see it, but it sounds like you've achieved a lot already, and you're only, 24?
Yeah.
Like, that's incredible. You know what I mean? That you've done this much so far. And it seems like, you're quite visible online. You post quite openly about a lot of what you're doing, where you're going, who you're with, and you seem to be having a good time, which I think is admirable. And I think it's aspirational for a lot of people to see. You've managed to strike, as I know sometimes it's probably been a struggle, but and actually when we talk about Support Network, shout out to TJ as well. Just have to mention his name. But you've built this massive support network around you. You're having a good time. You're competing at a very, very high level, and you've achieved very good things in your education. And now you're driven to go further into that field as well. So yeah, it sounds like you've got everything really figured out. I know maybe you don't feel like it. You're like, fuck, I don't know, shut the fuck up, Ian.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
Not really, no. Internally screaming most of the time.
But do you think it's that you are so driven that you expect more from yourself? Every time you achieve something, you want that next thing.
So I'm actually very good at like appreciating this, like what I have.
Stop and smell
achieved.
the roses.
Yeah, like I'm very much like, I love the simple things in life. Like obviously came third in Nats last year, even with my best performance. Still came last. It is what it is. But I had such a great time at that comp, and I was so proud of the experience. Even if I did have like a major depression episode after, I still loved what I was doing. But I just know myself that if I don't hold myself accountable, no one else will. Like there's certain goals that I want in life. Obviously, like I'd love to win Nats down the end of the road. You know, before I ever leave powerlifting, that's like a big goal of mine. But no one else is going to achieve that dream for me. I have to do that myself. Now, obviously, like I said, support system, it's so necessary. You actually, like, I'm sure people who don't have one will say, like, oh, I probably would achieve more if I had someone to kind of push me a bit. But realistically, no one's going to want your dream more than you. And you shouldn't focus on other people's dreams more than them themselves. So I think that for me, it's like, I know no one's going to make me get up and do anything to achieve it. I have to do that for myself. But obviously offloading stressors, you know, like your training, your nutrition, and having that support there to hold you accountable, that does help you push more.
Yeah.
But
removing that bit of friction with those people really makes a big difference. But you still have to be the person that gets up, lifts the weights, goes to college, shows up to work on the weekends, makes the training sessions, eats the food.
Yeah.
You know, travels up to Dublin for a competition.
Mm-hmm. Like, I know the dreams I want, and I wouldn't expect anyone to want them for me more than myself.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want that either. Like, obviously, I have a great support system with my parents as well. They're very, very eager to see me do well.
Mm.
And I'm sure that's the same with, like, everyone's parents. Mm. But, like, they actually get sad if they don't get to come to a comp.
Are they going to be at Nationals?
No. They're not here not this year. But, like, my dad will want to come to every single competition I do. And I'm pretty sure that's probably for the sesh as well. But,
yeah.
You know, he's my number one supporter. Every time I come home, he's like, how was training? Yeah. Like, what you hit? Like, what are your numbers? Like, how are you feeling? And same my mum as well. Mm. So I would very much be lost without support without that support at home.
Yeah.
But realistically, they're not the ones training.
Yeah.
So I know I want to win nationals down the line, and I'm sure I will eventually. I back myself that I can.
Hard.
Yeah, just keep working, and eventually I know that will happen. But no one else is going to do it for me. So I just really need to get the finger out and actually start working. Mm. And that's what I said to you earlier. Is like, I don't feel like I've actually hit my full potential. Mm. There's some people who do powerlifting these days who are like, that's their full-time job.
Yeah.
I'm not blessed with that. Mm. And I know 99% of Irish powerlifters aren't blessed with that either. So it's kind of one of those things where like, okay, how much of my time can I commit to powerlifting while also trying to build my career?
Yeah.
Because powerlifting isn't going to be here my whole life. So I want to establish my career first and then possibly come back. So it's probably going to be like another couple of years.
Yeah.
But I want to be able to be powerlifting on a high note.
Mm. Well, I mean, look at it this way. You've already done, like, given everything you've already achieved and still powerlifting at this very high level. Because I know you mentioned just earlier on, you know, yeah, you're not the best in Ireland, but even to be somebody that can say, I'm not the best in Ireland, but that states that you're within that striking distance. You're not a million miles off being one of the best lifters in the country. That speaks volumes to your work ethic and how much you've put in already. And you're only 24. You're already thinking long term, establishing your career. And the best thing about powerlifting is it facilitates those ebbs and flows of how much you can put in as long as you're working behind the scenes. And I think it's a great story to show people that they don't, like you mentioned, there are some people who powerlift like it's a full-time job. We don't have to do it, and you can still be quite competitive in this sport, whether you've the best genetics in the world or not. And I think it's a great story, and I'm really glad you came out of the other side of your downward momentum part after last year's Nationals, and here we go into the next one. Kym, I'm going to wrap it up with you there. Thank you very much for coming on the Iron Mindset.
Thank you.
We'll probably have another chat after Nationals. Have a good one. Take it easy.